Welcome back to another video. We're out here in New Jersey at our normal office spot, which is probably one of my favorite spots to fly at the moment. And today we're going to be doing something that we've done before. Well, not really. Today we're going to be looking at this guy right here. Yes, this is the Mob 8. Yes, we've reviewed this already. But there's a couple of things that I want to talk to you about. And first and foremost, I swapped to quad blade props, and that actually got rid of most of the washout on dives. So when you dove down things before, when you throttled out, it would kind of rotate, and a lot of that was due to it being slightly underpowered. So I swapped to 4-blade props, and it seems to have solved the issue. The real reason we're in this video today is because I'm actually going to test the dipole antennas that are on here currently to the True RC Smols. And if you've never seen the Smols before, they're basically an antenna that has like the casing removed. So they're pretty exposed, they're fairly delicate, but I want to see if with DJI and the O3 system, if dipoles and a left-hand polarized antenna work the same, better, different. So like we've done in previous tests for antenna range and penetration, I'm gonna do a little flight around this office park. Once I'm done with the flight, I'm gonna end up back here and I'm gonna swap the antennas over to the True RC Smols and see how they do. I'm really interested how this is gonna go. This is kind of a weird test, but I'm curious about the results. So without further ado, let's get into it and get up in the air. Okay, so I'm gonna face towards the parking garage and I'm gonna take off, do my little loop, and then we'll swap this antenna over. And I'm realizing now, the antenna swap is gonna be kind of annoying. Okay. And here we go. So we're gonna go down here. Hook.
Telemetry lost.
Oh. Wild. Looks like I'm going for a walk. So that was the first failsafe I've ever had with ELRS, and gives you some perspective of how nuts the RF environment is in that corner. So I've relocated. I'm going to try a slightly different path to see if we can induce some induce some interference in DJI without losing control. Let's check the drone over. We're all good. Let's get up in the air and send it with the original dipole antennas on the O3.
And here we go. We're going to take off and fly up our normal route that we do on these antenna tests. And as I mentioned before, on antenna tests, this corner up here has a lot of dirt, vegetation, concrete in between where I'm standing and the quad itself. So I generally anticipate signal loss. I even get it on my bigger quads running the full O3 antenna. And this actually surprised me how light the breakup was. Only getting into the low 20s, and then it recovers as soon as I'm back to visual line of sight with the quad again. Up here, as I approach the building, you're going to see another drop in signal. You're going to see it drop down like into the 40s, maybe touching the 30s at one point. But there's a big power generator in between me and the quad, so that does affect it. Through the parking garage, here I flew a little higher. You might notice in between this and the video coming up with the small antennas, I don't think it's going to make a big difference, but there is a height difference on that flight. Cruising down here, once again, headed towards signal loss corner. I'm kind of curious if because the goggles to use fully linear antennas, there's no polarization to it. That might be why these antennas perform so well, considering their size. You'll see I'm playing around here a little bit in signal loss corner. That 8 is about as low as it's going to get on this run. On this back stretch, it holds between 10 and 15. Not ideal. Definitely not smooth video. Definitely very chunky. But overall, again, flyable. Going to pop up, get down, and we're between a lot of concrete between me and the quad. So it's pretty impressive that it is holding in the 30s, turning into the main stretch up and returning towards myself. At this point, it basically is going to hold 50 all the way till I land. And yes, it is a little bit of a rough landing, but overall, I was very impressed with how the dipoles did on the Mob 8.
First lap done on the dipole antenna, so I'm going to change the antennas over now, and we're going to get up in the air and see if the smalls make any difference. So let's get into it. And so here are the True RC Smol. You can see spelled around there S-M-O-L. These are super, super tiny. Let me get one out of this little 3D printed container. And, oops. Here it is. It says tiny whoop on it. It probably won't focus all that well. For a reference purpose, here's a like XT60 cover, and here is the Smol. So it is very, very small. I got the Smols there on the back, and she's ready to go. So let's get this up in the air and see if having some small antennas changes the game. I just love that they're named Smol.
And here we go with the Smols on board. As expected, on the way up, the signal is pretty much locked right where it was at 50 megabits per second. Don't think the polarization would have really any impact in here as far as signal quality or signal connectivity. As soon as I make this corner, you're going to see it start to drop. I'm surprised it got into the teens. We didn't see this with the dipoles. Again, it returns, but doesn't return quite as quick and doesn't return as consistently. So I'm a little surprised that these antennas didn't hold the signal as well. Again, drops into the 30s a little bit. It performed a little worse than the dipoles there. Because I'm really curious if the fact that these are linear antennas and the goggle also has linear antennas, if that's why the signal seems so much better with those little dipole antennas. At longer range, obviously they're not feasible, and again, I don't think polarization is worthless when it comes to antennas for DJI, but as we get into this corner, you're going to see it drop even lower than that 8. It touches it right there, but again, it hovers like right here, it actually is better. So here's the position in which signal loss is common, and the linear polarized antenna, our left-hand polarized antenna, is doing better than the linear polarized. But as soon as I drop down here, 5 megabits per second, and that's hard to fly in. As soon as I turn the corner, slowly starts to return. By the time I reach the top, we're back to locked to 50. So definitely a surprising run, and I'm actually kind of curious if other people have seen similar patterns when it comes to antennas.
And there we go. So this is obviously being filmed before I get to review the footage and really dive into which one had better overall average range and penetration. My guess, at least from just feeling, again, this is not reviewing the footage, this is just me peeking down at that number every so often. I think the dipoles may have done better, or at least they probably did close to the same, enough so that it doesn't really matter. And honestly, these are way more fragile than those dipoles will ever be. So most likely this Mob 8 is going back to dipoles.
Before we close out this video, I want to give some final thoughts on the overall test. First, I was very impressed that both with the small antennas and with the linear polarized dipole antennas, the little wire antennas, both outperformed the onboard ELRS. Pretty surprised by that, considering that's the first real failsafe I've had with the ELRS, but it's also pretty impressive that ELRS built into a little whoop board can go that far. Doesn't look like that far, but there is a lot of concrete, a lot of security cameras, a lot of Wi-Fi access points. It's really impressive what that thing was doing. Getting to the video quality itself, I was actually pretty surprised, especially since you're going to fly a Mob 8 pretty close to yourself, and it's not really going to be a long-range beast, again, mostly because of battery capacity and flight time. But I think the dipole antennas, the weight savings you're getting there, and the durability of the dipole antennas really make that antenna a better fit for something like the Mobula 8, the Papo Pico, or anything that's that small 03 type quad. I think even maybe a 3-inch, if you really want to run dipoles on there, I think you might benefit actually from it. That's not to say the linear polarization didn't do anything. In signal loss corner, which I'm just going to name the back corner, the parking garage, It did perform better. You do get a huge amount of durability and simplicity though with those diapoles, which I think if push came to shove and I was selecting O3 antennas for a smaller quad, especially if you're being cautious when it comes to weight, definitely consider running diapoles. They work excellent, and with the goggles too, and I assume the goggles Integra as well, it's going to perform extremely well. And in the case of whoops, you'll probably be able to outrun your ELRS signal, which again, I still can't believe. I'm very surprised I lost control link with ELRS before losing video link. When it comes to tiny whoops, weight is king. So if you can shave half a gram off, that is a big deal. And so I think going with something like the Diapole or the linear antenna makes a ton of sense. If you've got a quad where the antenna is a little bit more protected, I do think in high Wi-Fi and high interference environments, the linear polarization does help the signal get through. So I think that in that case, if you're flying in a lot of office parks, you're flying in a lot of RF dense areas, go with that linear polarized, especially if you can protect it. And if you're flying just kind of everywhere and anywhere, and you need something that's you need something that's a little bit more durable, definitely give the Diapole a try. That thing is a champion when it comes to performance as well as durability. Because what are you going to do? Chop the antenna? And also they're cheap. I will also say that these Smols are about 19 bucks a hit, which is not inexpensive, but also it's not crazy expensive. It's pretty reasonable when it comes to high quality antennas. When it comes to the Diapole, there you're talking a couple of bucks. So as far as cost goes, especially if you're talking cost versus performance, and if you add durability into it, the clear winner for me is those Diapoles. Unrelated to the overall antenna testing, but is related to the crash at the beginning of this video, I definitely recommend with something like the Mopula 8, the Pavo Pico, anytime you have an O3 air unit that exposed and that out in the open, I would highly recommend checking out ND filters or lens protectors, whether they're Flywoo. I personally use camera butter. I feel like they snap on really nicely. You do want to run something on that O3 air unit lens. It's going to help with jello in the case of ND filters. In the case of just the lens protectors, it's going to give you still a good piece of glass on the front, so you still get excellent footage. But if a rock pops up and hits the camera itself, you're replacing a $10 filter and not a $100 camera. So because it's 10 times the cost for that O3 camera, definitely consider running filters or a lens protector. Only because I have experience breaking O3 air unit lenses. It is a heartbreaking endeavor. I know I could go out there and get the Flywoo replacement camera, which is a whole lot cheaper, but just having that camera calibration error in my OSD, that would drive me up a wall. And since I don't break enough of them, and now a few air units that I have the Assurion warranty, which, shout out to that. If you need to protect your O3 air unit, buy it on Amazon, buy the Assurion Care warranty, and you can get replacements if you crack that lens. So if you're dead set on not running filters, Assurion warranty on Amazon, it's your man. If not, run some kind of filter, some kind of lens protector. Trust me, the first time you crack one of those, you'll be so happy you didn't crack that camera lens.
So if you have a Mob 8 and if you've tried this before with other antennas, let me know down in the comments. I'm really curious about putting like bigger, stronger, more powerful antennas on here. Obviously that's going to compromise the flight characteristics probably quite a lot because it's already a chunky beast, and adding more weight is probably not the best idea, but yeah, who knows. With that said, thank you all for joining me. Down below there are links. Those are affiliate links. Obviously these are products that I use constantly on a daily basis and would recommend to anybody, but the links help this channel a little bit. You don't have to use them, but whatever. It is what it is. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll catch you in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. And if so, subscribe, like the video. Helps in the algorithm. Catch you in the next one.